I've worked in offices long enough to know that the most dangerous meetings are the ones with no agenda. The calendar invite just said, confidential. No description. No prep. No explanation. My manager, Grant, was already sitting in the room when I walked in, hands folded like he was about to deliver bad news gently. The kind of gentle that isn't kind at all. He didn't ask how I was. Didn't offer coffee. Didn't pretend this was routine. He just slid a folder across the table and told me the company was bringing in someone new, and they wanted my help making sure they were a good fit. I didn't understand what he meant until I opened the folder. There was a checklist. A spreadsheet. Behavioral metrics. Observation notes. Integration milestones. Corporate language polished until it didn't look like what it really was. And then the line that changed everything. Ensure the new hire can assume responsibilities currently held by you by end of quarter. They wanted me to spy on my replacement. It wasn't framed as betrayal. It was framed as teamwork. Transition. Growth. Alignment. Corporations have an endless vocabulary for uncomfortable truths. I left the meeting with the folder under my arm and the strange feeling that my job had already ended. Nobody had just told me yet. The new hire started the next Monday. Jonah Reed. 10 minutes early. Perfect handshake. The kind of polite confidence that belongs to someone who still believes hard work guarantees fairness. He smiled when we met. Thanked me in advance for helping him learn the ropes. And that was the moment the situation became unbearable. Because Jonah wasn't a threat. He wasn't arrogant. He wasn't trying to take anything from me. He was just someone who'd been promised a future. And I'd been asked to quietly make space for it. That first week, my manager sent me a spreadsheet titled Observations. Columns for punctuality. Competence. Social integration. Loyalty indicators. Loyalty indicators. I stared at that column for a long time. Wondered what loyalty meant in a place already planning to replace me. I started watching Jonah like they asked. But not the way they wanted. He asked good questions. Real questions. He wanted to understand why systems existed, not just how to operate them. He credited my work in meetings. He never acted like he deserved my role. The more I watched him, the more I realized something uncomfortable. He didn't know. He thought he was joining a team. Weeks passed. And then one evening, after most people left, Jonah asked me something quietly. He asked if I knew about him before he started. I told him the truth. And the relief on his face hurt more than the fear would have. Because it meant he'd felt it too. That strange tension in the office. The feeling of being watched. Evaluated. He told me he'd been recruited aggressively. Promised growth. Promised mentorship. Promised opportunity. He hadn't applied to replace anyone. He applied to belong somewhere. That conversation changed everything. We stopped playing the roles the company had written for us. Instead of teacher and replacement, we became two people trying to understand the same machine. And once you start looking at a company like a machine, you start seeing the gears. People whispering about budgets. Projects quietly deprioritized. Meetings about efficiency. Conversations about streamlining. Jonah started getting invited to meetings I'd never been invited to. Leadership meetings. Strategy meetings. Budget meetings. They were moving him into the spotlight while slowly fading me into the background. Then came the real test. A major system outage. A big client. High pressure. The kind of moment where experience matters. Executives kept directing questions to Jonah. He didn't pretend to know the answers. He pointed to me. That moment told me everything. He wasn't trying to replace me. He was trying not to be turned into a replacement. Soon after, HR offered me a new opportunity in another department. Same pay. Less responsibility. Less influence. Corporate exile disguised as career growth. The message was clear. Move aside gracefully. Or be pushed. Then Jonah told me something I never expected. They'd offered him my job. He hadn't accepted. Not yet. He didn't want it like this. That was when anger stopped feeling helpless and started feeling useful. I began collecting documentation. Emails. Contributions. Timelines. Evidence of everything I'd built. Everything I'd warned about. Everything they wanted to quietly forget. Jonah did the same from his side. Recruitment promises. Meeting notes. Contradictions. We built leverage. Not revenge. Not destruction. Just truth. When my manager called me in again and asked about my decision, I placed the documentation on his desk and told him something simple. If you want a clean transition, treat people cleanly. I didn't stay at the company. But I didn't leave quietly either. I negotiated a real exit. A real recommendation. A real acknowledgement of my work. Not a quiet disappearance. On my last day, Jonah walked me to the elevator and thanked me. He looked like someone who finally understood the system he was standing inside. I told him one thing before the doors closed. Companies will always try to turn people into tools. Don't let them. And for the first time in a long time, leaving didn't feel like losing. It felt like choosing my own future instead of waiting for someone else to plan it.